Closet, we will have T-shirts also.
Yeah.
More reason to come. I'm keeping one, but after that, we'll see about giving some out.
And you know what other movie stole from this? Witness with the death.
I knew you were going to say that.
in the grain mill, huh?
That's right.
Come on.
That's right.
You were thinking it.
This is a great movie, and it's super incredibly weird, and Rocky Horror Picture Show owes 90% of its existence to this movie.
Welcome. Biggest rule of Fright Club is you come here and do it with us live. Come on in.
Right.
We are live at the Gateway
friends.
Film Center in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome. I love this.
I know.
We got a good crowd tonight because we got a great movie and a fun topic. Hello. Already seen some regulars and some new faces. And then, by the way, anybody that doesn't have a Fright Club button, come down and get one after.
Please
We'll
help
be
yourself.
happy to, or come down and help yourself. Be happy to set you up. But, yeah, welcome again. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we are from madwolf.com. This is the Fright Club podcast. Welcome to our special director's cut of Morbius. No? No, that's not
I
what
haven't
we're
even
doing.
seen it, so I'm just assuming that it's terrible.
Oh, we're glad you're here because at least once a year, right? We like to do a classic horror
that's
film.
A bad sign.
Oh, we got the blue screen of death, which I'm sure we can fix, just like that. See? You're a tech wizard. And we like to do once a year, we like to do a classic and talk about a classic era in horror, and that is what we're doing tonight with the 1930s.
Yes.
Talk about the Wayback Machine.
That's right.
Way back to the 1930s, but such great movies to talk about and a great one to show. We were talking earlier in Happy Hour about how even if you've seen it, and how many people have seen it already, by the way? Okay.
All right.
But even if you have, you probably haven't seen it on the big screen, and this is a great reason to come out and check it out in a new way. So welcome. But before we get to that, we want to get to Last Time Out, the studio edition of Fright Club, where we had our friend and great filmmaker Timothy Troy on.
Yes, and that was super fun. We did a topic that was inspired by a recent short film of his. So our topic was closets, the best horror scenes in a closet. My God, there are so many. I mean, there are so many. And so actually we did I think 9 because he had a list, we had a list. There wasn't a lot of crossover, and so that's nice because it did mean that we could dig into some extras, so that was fun. Seth pointed out that we all forgot to mention Paranormal Activity 3,
right,
which does have a great closet scene.
Yeah, and I like that one.
Yeah,
I like that one in this series, yeah.
Dan was really happy that Tim had on his list House, not Hosu, you'll be happy to know. But House, and then D-Zach pointed out that you can and should watch House on Shudder. It's on Shudder right now.
Very cool.
So
Shudder,
exciting.
as we say it all the time,
Oh
Shudder's killing it
it's
right
the
now.
Best.
They really are. They're doing a great job.
Well, they just added all of those extreme French cinema.
Oh, man.
My God, my favorite movies ever.
Awesome. So thank you to Timothy Troy, and you should, by all means, check out his Creepy Cuts.
Yes.
And his crazy little monster productions.
That's the YouTube. It's Crazy
Yeah.
Little Monster, and they do once a month. They put out an extremely short film, and they're really fun.
They really are. Very creepy.
Yes, they
Creepy
are.
Cuts. So there you
Yeah,
go.
Creepy
Timothy,
Cuts.
thank you for that. And for anybody that didn't know, we just posted about it today. We're going to be hosting a pre-screening of Robert Eggers' new movie, The Northman. And that is going to be right here
Next
at
Wednesday.
Gateway a week from tonight.
Uh-huh.
And you can grab the passes at madwolf.com, and they've got the...
Well, no, you have to go to one of the socials, not the website.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can grab it on our Facebook page at Mad Wolf Columbus, and you've got the code there and the website where you can go and redeem the pass to join us. And thanks to Cicely and the Owens Group for that, because how much have we been looking forward to that movie?
Oh, my God. I'm so excited for that movie.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have. So by all means, we'd love to see you back here a week from
Rumor
tonight.
has it we will have T-shirts also.
Yeah.
More reason to come. I'm keeping one, but after that, we'll see about giving some out.
Swag. We love it. Okay, well, we're up against the clock, as we always are for the Fright Club Lives, but that's good because we want to get to the movies. So let's get into our favorite horror movies from the 1930s. Any disclaimers, anything to say beforehand?
Just that the 1930s, I think, it's just a fascinating time capsule. And it was such an explosion in horror and the popularity of horror films, especially in the United States. And I think that what made it so fascinating, and I think something that you can see sort of thematically through most of the really great horror films of the 1930s, is that it's a time period sandwiched between the two world wars. And so people came home from World War I mangled in a way that people weren't used to, because prior to that, they mainly died. right? Fewer people survived. And then World War I, people came home. And so I think that I think that you see a tendency of having, I think, just grappling with that, having a lot of sympathy for some kind of a disfigured, character. I think that's an interesting thing that I always see in these. And also just these vaguely evil Eastern European, they never specify, but they always are lurking and shadowy, and they've got accents. And that's something else that I think you see throughout all of these films.
Yes.
Also, I think a lot of still the style of the 20s bleeds into the 30s. So you get some of these great shadowy, like really graphic black and white images that are just glorious. Those are my favorite things about the film.
Yeah, very well said. All right, well, let's get to it. Number 5 on our list of best horror from the 30s. This one from 1931. Transylvanian Count bends a naive real estate agent to his will, then takes up residence at a London estate where he sleeps in his coffin by day and searches for victims by night. This is the classic Dracula.
Dracula? What's he done to you? Tell me, dear, what's he done to you?
He came to me. He opened a vein in his wrist, and he made me drink. I can't die with all that blood on my conscience!
Bela Lugosi crafting probably one of the most iconic and most recognizable figures in all of pop culture, really.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it started right here. And the first thing to remember about this movie is that this was based on the stage play of Dracula and not the book.
Well, the stage play was based on the book. So
yeah, but they had to cut it, streamlined it for the film and the stage play, yeah.
For sure. My favorite character in Dracula, in all of the Draculas, in the book and in all of the movie versions, is always Renfield. And Dwight Fry is the second best Renfield after Tom Waits, of course. I love that character. And it's funny, in the trailer, a maniac, but that's who they show. They're not showing Dracula at that second where he says a maniac. They're showing Renfield being like, rats. It's awesome. I love him. It is a great character, Dracula, and there have been some great, great people who have played Dracula over the years. Christopher Lee, of course, is another great one. But Bela Lugosi is the icon. He's the one everybody remembers. He's the one that gets a Bauhaus song, so that makes him extra cool.
And he actually played it only once more on screen, and it was in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948. He played a similar character in movies like Return of the Vampire, but Dracula only one more time with Abbott and Costello.
That's a little bit sad.
It is. And actually, this 1931 version, the original release, it featured an epilogue with Edward Van Sloan talking to the audience about what they had just seen, but that was removed for the 1936 re-release.
Because it's dumb.
But the funny thing was, though, Frankenstein sort of copied that by featuring a prologue.
But with Mary Shelley. I mean, it was characters. It was,
But I think that footage now from Dracula is assumed to be lost, I think, after all that. But, maybe dumb, but it's always like to go back and revisit it. But that's from 1931, the classic, number 5. So there's good stuff to come on our list of the best of the 1930s. Dracula going up to number 4. Well, we were just talking about this in Happy Hour, too, how much we like this one. From 1934, American honeymooners in Hungary become trapped in the home of a Satan-worshipping priest when the bride is taken there for medical help following a road accident. It's the Black Cat.
Did you ever hear of Satanism, the worship of the devil, of evil? Approach with the great modern priest of that ancient cult. And tonight, dark of the moon, the rites of Lucifer are celebrated. And if I am not mistaken, he intends you to play a part in that ritual. A very important part.
Where is my wife, Karen, and my daughter?
Karen? Why, what do you mean?
So first of all, that trailer does not do that movie justice. This movie is absolutely glorious. But second, here's another funny thing. If you look at the trailer that's on IMDb, it's not for this movie.
Right.
It's for a whole other movie starring Alan Ladd.
Right.
I kept watching it going, I don't remember any of this.
I think that was from the 40s, I believe.
Yeah. But it's a whole different film.
It is.
This is a great movie, and it's super incredibly weird, and Rocky Horror Picture Show owes 90% of its existence to this movie. It's so super fun and so incredibly weird. And another thing, of course, is that it says right on the, Edgar Allan Poe, not a single word.
No.
Not a word.
That was just for publicity's sake.
It really was.
Doesn't have a thing to do with it. But I believe this is the this is one of, if not the first horror film to mention Satanism as a cult, which of course kicked off a horror trope that continues to this day. And I love the fact that it's Karloff and Bela Lugosi, so you get those two icons together. And the way they're shot, even though that trailer is pretty rough, the way they're shot, you can tell how gorgeous that movie is.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely stunning. And Boris Karloff is such a superstar in this movie. It's amazing. And he really like leans into that awesome lisp, that he has, and he's just so super weird and fun in this. And not only is he a satanic priest, he's also a necromancer and possibly a cannibal. I mean, this movie is so saucy for the 30s. It's crazy. It's really, really, really incredibly fun. I really love this movie, and so few people have seen it or stumbled accidentally into a whole other movie that is not nearly as good.
They think they've seen it.
One assumes. So the more I think about it, the more we're going to have to show this.
Yeah, we are. And the character names. Karloff's character is Hjalmar Polzig, and Bela Lugosi's character is Dr. Vitus Werdegast. That's awesome. A writer-director is Edward G. Ulmer, and one of the other unconventional things about this movie is, at the time, movie music was usually limited to just the titles and the credits, but there's pretty much a continuous score throughout this whole movie, which was pretty unheard of at the time. So many reasons.
And it's really the first black mass in a movie, which is, I am such a sucker for a black mass in a movie. I remember working someplace one time and saying that I really love a black mass, and they all thought I meant like cancer. They were like, "You love what?" Like nobody knew what that meant. I thought, I have to get a different job.
Wow, that's the Black Cat, and that's one that you can mark down for a future edition of Fright Club, because we got to show that.
We do.
From 1934. That's number 4, and we got to move on up to number 3. Well, this is the one that we're going to see tonight, so we won't talk much about it. This is a drifter obsessed with the supernatural, stumbling upon an inn where a severely ill adolescent girl is slowly becoming a vampire. It's Vampire. Well, we already know only a few people here tonight have seen this, so we don't want to spoil anything. But by all means, after the movie is over, is the trailer over? By all means, after the movie is over, come on down. We'd love to get your comments about what you think of the film, and we'll get it on the podcast. But that's just another example of how gorgeous black and white photography can be.
Oh, yeah. And it's a really weird movie that really defies summarization, so there's not that much we were going to say to begin with. So I don't think we could spoil it if we tried, but it is gorgeous.
It was the first film to receive an H rating in the UK, and that was for horrific films which are likely to frighten or horrify children under the age of 16. Ooh. Now your curiosity is piqued. So Vampire from 1932 is number 3. We'll get to that here in a few minutes.
75 minutes later.
Carl Theodor Dreyer, of course, mostly famous for having directed Joan of Arc, which I think you can see in all the scenes where the young vampire is in the bed. It's like they're all so pulled directly from Joan of Arc, which is a great place to pull. I mean, that's a glorious, gorgeous movie. But I also think that you can see a lot. I think David Lynch has pulled a lot from this movie over the years.
Yeah.
And Coppola's Dancing Shadows in his Dracula. That's all about this movie.
Love the shadows.
Oh, yeah. So much fun.
And it's always fascinates me something this old, because let's face it, that the CGI in this movie was just not up to par. But, with the limited...
It's not Morbius or anything.
2 Morbius references
That's right,
this week.
It's a callback.
Nice. But with the limited resources that they had, they find a way to tell a story.
Yeah.
I love visual storytelling and those shadows and the windows
casket
opening.
point of view. I love the casket point of view, right? When you see him and he's in the casket and then you see what he's looking at. I think that's really, really effective.
The little
and I love
square with the face
Yeah.
and the open eyes.
Yeah.
And also I love the early take on vampire lore.
Yeah.
And it makes you think of how much it's changed over the years. I mean, look how much of an important part of this full moon was.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much been lost and taken over by the werewolves.
Yep.
But I love that early on, and the legend of the vampire.
I think it's funny too that in this movie and then all the stories that the man is reading about, it's always like a mean old lady, which is really uncommon anymore for like vampires. I also, if somebody breaks into your room when you're sleeping and he just writes, open after my death, he's not the boss of you. Just open it. Open it right that minute.
Good call. Anybody got some thoughts? Come on down. We'd love to get your take on it.
I appreciated all the doors throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It was almost like a funhouse effect. and I wasn't quite sure. I'm sure they all meant something. Different segments of either his imagination or different storylines, and it's like, chapter A through Z, but they looked to be all over the dwelling.
Yeah.
And I was trying to imagine from an architectural sense, what must that have looked like? It just would have been crazy. It's like doors going nowhere,
Right.
stairways going nowhere, and he oftentimes going nowhere also.
Yeah.
So I just found that fascinating.
And keys as well. There's a lot about keys, and people are finding keys, but obviously, because the guy who broke in and left that package, he managed to unlock from the outside, and then he left again and politely locked it. And I thought, well, why even bother? Clearly, you can just walk right in.
I really enjoyed this movie a lot. Like, I really liked how atmospheric it was, how it was really different compared to like other horror films from the 30s, where there's a lot more like composition music and as opposed to just dialogue. I was really fascinated like by the effect of having all the ghosts like faded in a way. You could do it easily now, but I was wondering like how were they able to do that back in the 30s?
You know what? I thought the same thing, especially when Alan Gray and his shiny bottom lip separated from himself, and was like wandering around, is when it really dawned on me, like, I wonder how exactly they got that effect, or he got that effect, because it was very cool.
It was cool. Just another example where they found ways to do what they wanted to do with their limited resources. What do you think?
I just wanted to comment, is it like a 1930s hospitality thing and some random dude shows up to your house right after a guy died? It's like, oh, you can stay the night? Like,
be our new boss.
Who are you?
I know.
Like,
I kept thinking that too.
He's giving them orders like, you wait for the doctor, you go here. Who are you? You just showed up.
You're just some nomad who showed up over there at their house. Now you're at my house and you want a place to stay. I thought the same thing. I thought, white guys just show up where they want and start bossing people around.
And you know what other movie stole from this? Witness, with the death.
I knew
the
you were
death
gonna say that.
in the grain mill, huh?
That's right.
Come on.
That's right.
You were thinking it.
Two things. The architecture and sets from the 1930 movies are outstanding. I mean, the black and white set with the stairs and everything like the doors is wonderful. But how much of this was Alan's imagination? Because they said right at the start, Alan was going crazy.
Oh yeah, I think that there's a good thread in this film that the whole thing is his imagination. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so surreal. And it's just, there's so many doors, there's so many, and then hidden doors behind these tapestries. And the one tapestry, when the girl is dying in her bed, the first thing you see is this big tapestry of like a happy party, and it's like a young woman just having a drink and having a good time, and then they pan to this, this young girl in her bed. I think that there's a good chance that the entire film is in his imagination.
I just want to follow up about what you were saying earlier, George. It's really great to see a vampire story that's not what we see today. After Dracula, everything is, the vampire is suave. He comes in, he's got these powers, and it's just great to see like these European older interpretations where it's just some person, or in this one, it's someone who lives in the woods, or like in Black Sabbath with the Vertilac. It's someone who could just show up and they're just someone and they may or may not be a vampire. And I wish we had more of those stories. Just mix it up a little bit, because everything is such the same with vampires anymore.
Yeah, I do like when you go back to the older ones that feel more like folklore. A lot of times it all blends together. A lot of times it's a shapeshifter, and I do like that too, where it's not so completely delineated. Of this monster needs a wooden stake in the heart, and this monster comes out on full moon. It is kind of fun when it's a mishmash.
And I was thinking the henchman.
Love that word. We were both like, ooh, henchman.
That
Great
lured
word.
Mark Twain to his death. I was thinking Renfield.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah.
I'll first say thank you, because I think what you're doing is great with the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I heard the last podcast, and I thought it was a great surprise in the intro that you had.
Because you were in it.
Right, you were in the last, right? You mentioned the Ramones.
He made the intro, so that means he had something really important to say, like
about
now.
The Ramones.
Yeah, today I came in with my dad. He's visiting from out of state.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Where are you from?
Puerto Rico. Yeah, it was such a great selection, I'll say.
Thank you very much.
Really liked the cryptic writings, right? Very poetic.
Yeah.
And they nailed her horrid soul through the earth.
It's a great line.
Giving her a true death.
That was a great line.
Right?
Yeah, that was some of the subtitles were a little hard to read through
because they
all
were
that.
on top
yeah,
of other
through all that,
type.
but that's just.
But and I'm trying to remember the other movie that you've pointed this out before, where you really, for me, I don't think you even need to understand the dialogue, right? I mean, it's a pretty surreal film. You know what I mean? It's not incredibly clear what's going on. It's very nightmarish and dreamy. So to me, I feel like you could probably understand it as well without even reading anything.
Yeah, you probably could, because they do a lot with visual storytelling, which is great. So, well, we can't thank you guys enough. Great comments.
Yes, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, great turnout, and it's always good to do these classics. And I think we know one of these days we'll do the Black Cat.
Oh, for sure, we'll do
that'll
the
be
Black
super
Cat.
Cool.
I can't. I mean, because in putting this together, I realized as many times as I've seen the Black Cat, I've never seen it on a big screen.
Right.
And it's a gorgeous movie,
It
and
really
it's
is.
super weird. So.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be back in May. And in June, it's one of 3 films that we're still working on. So the last 2 have been bloodless and black and white and foreign language. And the next one will be in color, and a lot of it will be bloody red.
Yeah.
So
something really nasty.
Just a little change.
Maybe that something will get a merit badge for showing up. Maybe?
No. They're all 3 of them are pretty fun. I mean, I think they're fun. That really
Okay.
doesn't mean anything to anybody, to be honest with you. But they are very bloody, the 3 options. Lots
right.
of blood.
Looking forward to it. All right, thanks again, guys, and we'll
Thank
see
you
you
very
soon.
much.
So up to number 2, and this is the same director from Dracula, Todd Browning. This is from 1932. A circus beautiful trapeze artist agrees to marry the leader of sideshow performers, freaks.
We didn't lie to you, folks. We told you we had living, breathing monstrosities.
Let them laugh. They're swine. They can't hurt me, but they hurt me.
They're going to make you one of them, my peacock. Their code is a law unto themselves. Offend one, and you offend them all.
Trailers from the 30s were really unusual, weren't they? So this is the movie that ended Todd Browning's career. So that's too bad, because he was really on a high note just a year earlier with Dracula. But
yeah, well, it was after the success of Dracula, the studio just gave him this pretty much carte blanche with the instruction to out-horror Frankenstein.
Yep.
Give something even out-horrific than that. And then, like you said, about ended his career, pretty much ended his career.
Yeah, yes, it did. And it's actually, so he's made 2 films that are set basically in a circus sideshow. Both of them are great. There's a lot of controversy about it. At the time that it came out, it was kind of universally banned. It was really hard to get a hold of for a very long time. And then, once people could get a hold of it, there was like another backlash that perhaps he had exploited the actors that were in the film, that a lot of them probably didn't really have the sort of capabilities of saying, yes, I'd like to be in a part of your film. And so, that's a lot of baggage for a movie to carry with it. Aside from that, though, I mean, I think that it has developed a tremendous cult following because it sides with the freaks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it completely empathizes. That's your point of view characters. They're the people that the movie is assuming that the audience is one of us, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so beloved. I think it really speaks to a lot of people for that reason. One of the things that always sticks out to me is that Daisy and why do I forget his Harry Earl, who play the lovers that you hope get together at the end.
Yeah.
They're actually brother and sister. That's a weird choice to make for your film. And they also, you can't not know it. They look exactly alike.
They do.
They have the same little faces and the same voices. But
yeah, and the ending that is now seen in almost all prints was not the original ending in Todd Browning's original cut. They added that to make it a quote-unquote happier ending. But I think it's interesting about the
She looks happy, doesn't she?
It's interesting about the exploitation of the actors. I think in the years following, if I remember it right, some of them came out and said that, yes, they did feel exploited, and some said, no, they didn't.
Right.
So it just sort of muddied the waters. But I think, over the years, it has come to be regarded differently since then, and has attracted that cult status, and of course that line, "One of us, one of us,"
Oh my,
is just lives
and then
on its own.
The final scene of carnage in the rain is incredibly creepy and really, really well filmed.
Yeah, and that one is a classic for many reasons. Number 2 on our list of horror from the 30s, Freaks. And moving up to number 1, well, this is kind of a...
It's a cheat.
It's a cheat.
Because you're all going like, which one is it?
It's a cop-out.
It's cheat.
But
it's both of them.
But we make the rules. It's both of them, from 1931, Frankenstein, and from 1935, Bride of Frankenstein.
This is the story you've heard about. The spine-tingling, blood-chilling story that stuns your emotions. Frankenstein.
Oh, it's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
She's alive! Alive! The Bride of Frankenstein.
So, which one is actually better? Who thinks Bride of Frankenstein is better?
Ooh.
Who thinks Frankenstein is better?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, we probably side with Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I think it's still the only episode of Fright Club where we only talked about one movie was when we just talked about Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the only one.
But both are so great.
Yeah. And also, if I left Dracula off the list, I thought somebody would beat me up, so we had to just find a way to get it on there. So we did Fuzzy Math for the first time in a live episode.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. But James...
They're both such great movies.
Yeah. Director James Whale's
Yep.
just masterpieces. I think one of the many interesting things, in Frankenstein, there's not really a time stamp.
Yeah.
And James Whale, I think, was quoted at the time saying that he wanted to craft it as a fairy tale. But yet, in Bride of Frankenstein, there's a bottle of wine that Pretorius has, and the label on that says 1912.
Oh.
So it gives it a little more of a time stamp.
A pretty definite time stamp.
Yeah, but I can see the aesthetic he was going
Yeah.
for, especially early on, was fairy tale-ish.
Oh,
But-
for sure. I think, the big star here is actually probably Jack Pierce, who outdid himself with that most iconic monster makeup of all time with
Incredible.
Frankenstein, and then came back and did it again with the goth goddess that is the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, and in that one, in Bride of Frankenstein, it's the Frankenstein monster that looks different because Karloff was wearing his dental plate.
Right.
Which it didn't look so gaunt in the face. But yeah, the makeup for Frankenstein's monster at first, and then, as you can see from Hope's purse down here, the incredible look of Elsa Lanchester.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the first movie. It's so sad. Your heart breaks for him.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like about The Bride of Frankenstein is that it's very darkly funny.
It
Dr.
is.
Pretorius is hilarious.
It is.
He's got the little miniature people who are like, and I remember when first time I watched this little kid, I thought, who's going to take care of those little miniature people after Pretorius dies?
And you know what I thought?
This is terrible.
I was thinking, where did they get those little clothes? There's the little people. Where do they get the little clothes?
That's right.
But the other great thing, you're right about this, the humor in Bride of Frankenstein. Also, there's great social satire in there
sure.
as well.
Yeah.
But the fantastic thing about it is it never, ever undercuts the horror of it, which I think sometimes some of today's horror leans toward doing that. It gets too funny and it undercuts what they're trying to do. But Bride of Frankenstein never does. I think that's one of the reasons it's slightly better.
Yes. Although I don't like that smoke scene. Smoke,
Yeah.
good. I don't like it. I can't get behind it. It's like when the Incredible Hulk talks. It's like, no, stop it. I love those movies. I mean, they're just brilliant movies. And I do like the Hammer Frankensteins, not as well as I like the Hammer Draculas, but I think what James Whale understood that other Frankenstein filmmakers didn't is that it's the monster who's interesting. Like that was his investment, was in the Frankenstein monster, who's this is a big child, and is so sad but so uncontrollable and so much bigger than we are that when he throws a temper tantrum, your 4-year-old gets flung into the lake and dies.
Yeah.
And so if there's something really tragic and heartbreaking about him, and then all the other Frankenstein films are more interested in the mad scientist, and who gives a shit about a mad scientist? Oh my God, an egocentric doctor. I can't believe that.
Absolutely. But it's and the fact that The Bride of Frankenstein picks up really right where the other one left off, even though it has a different actress playing, Elizabeth, which is a little bit jarring, but it's meant to be continuous like that, which is great. And the films aren't that long, so really watching one back to back can give you a great experience.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, so that's why they're tied.
That's why.
That's how we got out of that.
It's not that Dracula nonsense. It's just because they're tied. No, it's totally the Dracula thing. It's why.
Not that nonsense. So that's number one on our list of best horror from the 30s, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. So that takes us up to the movie we're going to see tonight. It is Vampire. Can't wait to watch it on the big screen with you all, and can't wait to have you come down after and tell us what you thought about it.
Yes.
So looking ahead to, well, let's see. No, we're going to take May off of Fright Club because
we're shooting a movie. We're filming our first feature in May. It's called Obstacle Corpse. And so we will be tired. Actually, we'll actively be on the film set on that day. So we can't come out then. But in the meantime, we're going to record one with the Spooky Buddies, with D-Zac and Pina Joe and Mox and Me Toxin and Old Man Spencer, all of us crammed into one studio.
Yep.
We're going to talk about Spooky Buddies,
that
about
is gonna
big
go,
groups of friends.
That's going to go
movies.
off the rails early and often.
Very quickly.
So that should
very
be fun.
quickly.
But we should have this podcast edited and ready to go by Monday.
Yep.
So we'll have it up on all of our socials, of course, at madwolf.com, the main website. You can find it on all the main podcast apps, and you can always keep the conversation going with us on Twitter. We're at Fright Club Pod, and Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook and Instagram. By the way, if you didn't hear earlier, we do have those passes to come back a week from tonight and see the early screening of The Northman right here at Gateway. You can get the code to join us at Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook.
Yep, and also on Twitter, Fright Club Pod on Twitter.
Oh, and also the Fright Club group on Facebook.
That's
if
right.
you're not a member, by the way, please join. We'll prove you right quick. And thanks again to the Owens Group. All right, thank you for coming out. I know we're all excited to see this. Come down after and we'll talk. Get a button if you don't have one. And I know Stan is up there ready to roll it. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends. Thank you, guys. Hit it, Stan.